welcome to Chengi's World. I am taking you on a treat today. We're going to take a bit of a walk on Saturday, on Storytime Saturday. I know some of you love my walks and seeing my little town in West Sussex. The sun was out when I left my house, but it is absolutely freezing, so we won't be out here long, and I'm hoping that the wind doesn't get in the way and that you guys can actually hear me. So if you are new to this channel, welcome to Chengi's World. I'm Chengi and you are my world. Don't forget to subscribe, like, share, comment and become part of this party, because we are going places, people. We are going places. If you want to find me on my Instagram or Facebook, it's Chengi's World, or my website chengisworld.co.uk, and for my one-to-one coaching program, getthering.co.uk. Okay, enough of that. So I don't have a cup of tea, guys. I'm out here in the wild. So this is my little walking spot, and I'm just going to let you sort of figure out where we are so we don't take too much time doing a tour. I'm hoping to get a really nice part where you guys can see some really nice scenes, but if we don't get there, we'll try it again, another video when the sun is out and behaving itself and it's not freezing out here. Alright, so the last time we were talking about my journey, I had come from Zimbabwe and I arrived, and I said to you guys that it was the worst possible mistake I felt I'd made. I think it's the truth in terms of lessons to be learned, is that the grass is never greener, it's just different shade of green on the other side. And I think when you are in Africa and dreaming of coming to the West, what you're dreaming of is what you see on television. You know, I think the most I'd been exposed to in England was Biker Grove. I believe that was the program that I've seen the most, and Keeping Up Appearances. And what you see on television is not necessarily a false reality, but I think, like all things, is that bit more glamorized. And you know, England was again not really my heartbeat. It wasn't where I wanted to be. So here I am, and the clouds are grey. My flight was redirected. Everything that you can possibly imagine happened on that flight. And here I am on the tube, full of a lot of people, loads and loads of people on the tube. And you know, I'm trying to figure out, and nobody's friendly, nobody's smiling. Remember, I come from a culture of happy people that say good morning and good afternoon to one another as we go about our day. But here I am in this situation where I'm just thinking to myself, no one's friendly, no one is talking to me. I'm out here on my own, and my cousin is walking at 100 miles an hour. And that's one thing you realize very quickly in England, is that everybody walks very fast. And that's mainly because it's cold and everybody wants to get indoors, and nobody's very friendly. Not because they're not friendly, but because everybody's just trying to go indoors. But you have to imagine, I am now at a pace and walking at a pace that I've never had to walk in life. It goes from 0 to 100. The weather is grey, my mood is down. So I spent the first couple of weeks really just in depression. I was completely depressed. I wanted to go home, but I didn't want to go home. I felt stuck and just lost. And obviously you're only allowed a few days when you come from Africa. Then I had to go job hunting. So my cousin took me around, and we did. In those days, you would go from shop to shop asking, do you have any vacancies? You'd look really pretty, put on your really pretty dress and go everywhere. So my cousin and I went to the West End. We went into every single shop asking if they had vacancies, and one or two did. It wasn't long before my cousin had to go back to work and get on with her day job. So I had to now learn how to navigate the tube and the train. I'm telling you, it's like from Mars, it's like from Earth to Mars. It was such a huge jump for me. I was not used to this way of life and to the speed. And so I felt so lost. And I don't know if I've shared this with you guys, but my sisters and my family were very much the people that decided things for me. When I went to a restaurant, my sisters would order for me, and I didn't feel any kind of way about it because I'd always been the baby of the family, albeit my younger sister was born 7 years later. I think I was kind of in most people's heads last born, because my younger sister was a bit of a surprise to all of us. To be honest, I always say she was my prayer. I didn't want to be the young one, because in Africa it means you get sent all the time. Get me this and get me that. So I was like, God, I need a younger sister. But nevertheless, I was to my family the baby, so decisions were made for me, what I wore, what I did, and I don't think my family ever really stopped, and I was comfortable with that. So here I am in this strange world that I don't understand. People are coming from left, right, and center. I have to catch these fast moving trains. I don't even know how you ring the bell to say stop. I mean, I am like utterly and completely lost. And then I realize that I am in this weird place in my life, and I felt lost and confused. And my cousin had to then go to uni after a few weeks. Eventually I found my way around. I figured out how everything works, and I got my first job in Selfridges in London. Big job. I mean, hello. Behind a cosmetic counter selling makeup for black women. It was called Florrie Roberts. Florrie Roberts was literally like teeming with black women. It was the trendiest, most beautiful makeup I've ever seen at the time. So, and we were the only counter in the whole of England. So you can imagine we would be chocker. We wouldn't even be able to get a break. But I literally used to leave my house, get to Selfridges, work until I die, and go home. And I was so afraid of anything beyond that. So when I met my ex-husband, I was, I think, 18 then. And he was obviously a 20-year-old London boy who knew his way around. He was sweet, he had a little metro. And he just, I think, you know, when you are vulnerable like that, you just, you know, you attract somebody who wants to just protect you. And he sort of came in and became my knight in shining armor. You know, agreed to go to church with me and literally just, you know, became a protector. And obviously at the time I wasn't really that aware of what was really going on with me, but I just lurched onto the first person that would look after me, because all my life I'd been looked after. And he was prepared to go to church, and all that I'd ever been taught in church was that just find yourself a saved man. That's all God requires, you know. And when I met him, he wasn't saved, so, you know, he followed me to church and he liked what he saw. The sun is coming out now, I think. And he decided that he would give his heart to the Lord, and he did really well. And as far as I was concerned, I was changed by marriage, and you got married and you marry a Christian man, and as long as he shows you a certain kind of way. And of course he was British, he wasn't like Israel, was he? He was the British boy that I was hoping to meet, mixed race, good looking, muscles, hello, you know, what can I say? He was, and even now people, when they meet my ex-husband, he's a good looking guy, there's no two ways about it. So it was like a, you know, for an 18-year-old to be with this kind of hunk of a guy, who was prepared to look after me, take me places, drop me off, pick me up, listen to me for hours on end as I moaned about my aunt who wouldn't let me go out. A part of me wanted that independence. I wanted to explore the world. But another part of me was scared, and he ministered to the part of me that was scared. And the part of me that wanted to explore resented my aunt for being protective. She knew and she could feel that I was new to the country and scared, but that caused us to be very much in conflict, because she wanted to do for me what my sisters had done for me, protect me and keep me safe and know where I was. But I wanted to be the big girl. I wanted to go where I wanted to go, and now I had this boyfriend and we could go places, and I didn't want to come home at a certain time. I was a working girl, for goodness sakes. I was paying her rent, and I was a Selfridges girl, baby, like, you know, from Harare to Selfridges. Talk to me. Okay, so I was going through the usual adolescence that I really had skipped when I was in Zimbabwe. I skipped the whole adolescence thing, obviously, and so here I was, you know, going through that phase, and you know, she just felt so frustrated she couldn't control me. I wasn't super rebellious, but I was a very bit of a passive aggressive. I don't sort of talk back. I just make up my mind and do what I'm doing, and I won't talk back. And I think that's so frustrating. It was really frustrating for her. And at the time, I just saw her as my prisoner. I saw her as not my prisoner, but the person who was imprisoning me. And my ex just seemed like the person who was setting me free at that time. So long story short is, he obviously saw that I was a sweet little virgin Christian girl who loved the Lord. And you know, I didn't realize how rare I was. At the time, I thought that I was normal. I thought that every 18-year-old was, you know, being chaste and holy and going to church, and the ones that weren't in church, they can't have been that bad, really. So, you know, he saw this, you know, naive, needy, lost African girl, and he saw where he could add value. But he also knew that if he sort of allowed me to explore the world for myself, I may have found an alternative to him, because you know, that's what happens in life, isn't it? So he literally proposed to me 6 months into our dating, and as much as I said no and I didn't want to marry him, I felt like I would lose my caretaker. And it's interesting, and for those of my younger viewers, when you are 18 and that age group, you just assume that you know that you're old enough, but really you're just a baby. And my rationale at the time was, all right, then I'll accept the proposal, and then when I'm 25, we'll get married. He's a nice enough guy, he looks after me, he takes care of me, he makes sure I'm okay. Nothing really to complain about. And you know, whilst I'd said no and cried and did the whole I'm not ready to get married thing, it just felt like, oh, what the heck, he wasn't really taking no for an answer. And he genuinely believed that God had said that I was his wife, and he genuinely believed that from the bottom of his heart. And I've had a few messages from girls around my age who told me, you know, the youth pastor or whatever pastor said that I am his wife, and I don't want to have to dump my boyfriend for him. And it's a lot of those tactics are used within the church. A lot of it happens so much and so often in the church, where somebody will say that God has said, you are my wife or you are my husband. And as a result of that, a lot of young people get confused and they buy into that whole kind of thing and end up in a situation. So, you know, in many ways, I wasn't any different. I felt okay. Now, the key to that, people, is for you to hear from God yourself. I'm not saying God doesn't tell people this is your husband, but the other person has to hear it too. And until you've heard it, it's not the truth. You know, it has to be confirmed by you and by him. It's not a one-way street. And that goes both ways. You can't go up to a man and say, the Lord says you're my husband, so you just better like it. He's got to hear God too on that front. So what happened was, you know, what I thought would be a long-term engagement literally just became isn't this lovely? What was supposed to be a 6-month engagement became 6 months later. My aunt obviously found out that I had said yes to the engagement, and in an effort to really manage the situation, she gave me an ultimatum. You know, you get rid of this engagement, you stop this right now, or you leave my house. But because I'd felt that she was my prisoner, she was imprisoning me, it was almost like a get-out clause for me at the time. Obviously, at the time, I felt she was a horrible auntie who was throwing me out on the streets. But at the time, upon reflection, I realized that she wasn't kicking me out. She was just trying to protect me. She was doing the best that she could by giving me an ultimatum. And so that night, I remember coming back. It was quite late after a church meeting, and I packed my bags in the middle of the night. And there I was outside her house with a suitcase, nowhere to go. And this man was by my side. So that escalated what would have been possibly a longer engagement, because by the time we went to our church and to our pastors, and that's another thing with pastors in churches, is they want to be able to say to new people and to members, you know, I've had a wedding in my church, we've had 3 weddings this year, and you know, it's all part of the marketing of the church. Everybody wants success, and sometimes in an effort to make it happen, sometimes sometimes wisdom is not applied, and sometimes people just want to go with it. You know, we came into the church as a couple. They saw him growing, they saw us growing in the Lord, and here we are. I am now homeless, and his mom is upset with him for moving too fast or whatever it is that he hadn't done, and he's now homeless. So why don't you two just get married and start your life? And I was like, well, that wasn't kind of the plan. But yeah, you know, what is it that's stopping you? You know, get on with it. You know, it stops you from fornicating, and you know, it will keep you pure. And you know, statistics show that people that meet young and whatever stay together. Things. And before I left my pastor's office, they set a date for the wedding. Right, so the 25-year engagement that I had been planning became 6 months, and in 6 months' time the church had offered to pay for the wedding, and there I was on this roller coaster ride, frightened to death. My family disowned me. They didn't want to know. They pretty much told me that you know, they were not in agreement, it wasn't the best thing to do, and they were right. But I was afraid. I was alone. I was out here on these streets, no family. He is all I had, and the church told me to marry him, and he was all I had. So that's what I did. And I just want you to know that, you know, when a lot of parents watching this, if you're thinking of sending your kids into the diaspora, you have to be careful and make sure that you protect and provide that provision and that protection for them. You know, to put your kid on a plane and send them off to another country is not enough. You know, some do come here and put their heads down and work hard because they know where they've come from. But some just come here and get trapped by the system. You know, survival is such a big deal in the West, especially for somebody who wasn't raised here. Survival and desperation and lostness can make you make decisions that you wouldn't ordinarily make. If I was brought up and raised in England, I would have known the kind of person that I'm dealing with. I would have known that, you know, I would have known my way around. I would have been like every other teenage girl, making a decision based on a bigger framework. But again, I didn't have that. And my aunt, as much as she was tried her best, at the end of the day, I was rebelling, and she wasn't, according to African culture, going to come and hunt me down and find me. You know, I had to be the one to submit and yield to her and say sorry. And of course, I felt I was right. I had the backing of the church, and I had a man by my side. So a lot of things that happen in our lives, when we make decisions and a few years later we find ourselves divorced or in a muddle or in a pickle, it's not because we have to search the foundations. You know, the Bible says, if the foundations of the heart are destroyed, what can the righteous do? The problem is often in the foundations. That's where the issues lie. And so whatever else happens thereafter, it was not built on the right foundations. I got married out of fear. I got married out of lostness. I got married out of desperation. All of which are the worst possible foundations for any relationship under any circumstances. And so it was only a matter of time before things went pear-shaped. And you know, God is faithful and He's merciful. And you know, we'll talk some more about life during and after divorce. But I certainly hope that this video has shed some light into who I am and what makes me me, and above all can teach somebody else a lesson about life and being in the diaspora and being an immigrant, and whether you're a parent watching this, how that affects your children. As a teenager watching this, what you think is the reality and what happens on the ground is very different. Whether you're in the diaspora or not, if you're a young girl and you're so hell-bent on getting married and you won't listen to anybody, I get that. I get that feeling that you love the person that you love, and some of these things work out, but you know, you have so much more life to live. And I live by the motto now and the principle that if it can't wait, it's not God. You know, that which is God and that which is for us can wait. It can wait and it can be sustained. So there's no need to be in a hurry. There's no need to do anything prematurely. You know, you can wait it out. You can go through a process. Allow yourself to get that education. Allow yourself to to go to uni, and that's some of the stuff that I'm going to talk about as a young person who is married, their unique set of circumstances and sacrifices that come with getting married too young. So stick in there, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. Don't forget to subscribe, to like, share, comment, and I will see you again on my next video. See you soon. Take care of you. Love you lots.